The morning sun slanted through the tall windows of the Hawthorne estate, casting long shadows across the study where Ethan Hawthorne stood, with a crystal glass of bourbon. At 38, Ethan, a white American heir to a fading Virginia dynasty, wore his privilege like a well-tailored coat, effortless, yet heavy. His dark hair, flecked with premature gray, was swept back, and his sharp features bore the faint lines of a man who smiled more out of habit than joy. The room around him, with its mahogany bookshelves and cracked leather chairs, smelled of old money and neglect. The Hawthorne mansion, perched on the outskirts of Willow Creek, was a relic of antebellum grandeur, its white columns yellowed, its paint peeling like skin from a forgotten dream. Yet the Hawthorne name still carried weight in this small southern town, a currency Ethan spent freely to mask the emptiness within. He swirled the bourbon, the amber liquid catching the light, and gazed at the sprawling lawn. Beyond the overgrown rose garden, a slender figure moved with quiet purpose. Lena Carter, the estate's housekeeper, carried a bucket of cleaning supplies toward the main house. At 34, Lena, a black American woman, was a study in efficiency. Her dark braid tucked neatly beneath a scarf, her eyes fixed on the ground. For 7 years, she had polished the mansion's floors, dusted its chandeliers, and faded into the background of Ethan's world. She was as much a fixture to him as the brass doorknobs she shined. Necessary, but invisible. Another party, Ethan? Really? The sharp voice of Margaret Hawthorne, Ethan's aunt, and the family's self-appointed guardian of tradition, cut through the quiet. She stood in the doorway, her silver hair pinned tightly, her pearl necklace gleaming against a navy dress. Margaret clung to the Hawthorne legacy at 62, with a fervor Ethan could never muster. He turned, flashing a practiced smile that didn't reach his hazel eyes. "What else is there to do around here, Aunt Margaret? Besides, my 39th birthday deserves a spectacle. A masquerade. Masks, mystery, the whole town fawning over us. Reminds everyone we're still here." Margaret sniffed, adjusting her pearls. "The Hawthorne name doesn't need reminding. It's you who seems to forget what it means." Ethan drained his glass, the bourbon burning his throat. "What does it mean? A crumbling house we can't afford? Stories of glory days that weren't glorious for everyone, and drinks with people who only show up to gawk at our decline." He laughed, a hollow sound. Some legacy. Her face tightened, lips pursing. "Your father would be ashamed. He built this family's name on dignity, not cynicism." "My father was always ashamed," Ethan shot back, pouring another drink. "At least I'm honest about who I am." He turned to the window, his gaze drifting to Lena as she disappeared into the side entrance. A flicker of something, curiosity, perhaps, crossed his mind, but he dismissed it. The study door creaked open again, and Victor Langston, Ethan's oldest friend, sauntered in, his blonde hair tousled, his grin wide. Victor, a lawyer with a taste for mischief, was a fixture at Hawthorne gatherings, always ready to stir the pot. "Planning the bash of the century, eh?" he said, clapping Ethan's shoulder. "Masquerade's a bold choice. Very theatrical." Ethan smirked. "Gives the Willow Creek elite something to gossip about. Who's wearing what? Who's sleeping with whom? Keeps them distracted from the fact that we're one bad investment from losing this place." Victor laughed, then leaned against the desk, his eyes glinting. "You know what'd spice things up? Invite someone unexpected. Shake the snow globe a bit." Margaret, still in the room, raised an eyebrow. "Don't be absurd, Victor. We invite the right people. Families of standing, not riffraff." But Victor's grin widened, his voice dropping conspiratorially. "I'm thinking of your housekeeper. What's her name? Lena? Imagine her walking into your fancy gala, all dolled up, trying to blend in with the country club set. It'd be hilarious." Ethan paused, the idea catching like a spark in dry grass. Lena, with her quiet demeanor and work-worn hands, at his masquerade? The image was absurd, a perfect jab at the town's rigid social order, and his boredom. "You're awful," he said, chuckling. "But it's tempting." Margaret's voice was ice. "That's not a joke, Ethan. It isn't kind. She's staff, not a plaything for your amusement." "Oh, come on, Margaret," Victor teased. "It's just a bit of fun. She won't come anyway. People know their place." Ethan set his glass down, the clink loud in the tense silence. "Why not?" he said, his tone casual but edged with defiance. "An invitation doesn't mean she'll show. And if she does," he shrugged, a reckless glint in his eyes, "it'll liven things up." Margaret's glare could have shattered glass. "You're a Hawthorne. Act like one." She swept out, her heels clicking sharply on the hardwood. Victor clapped his hands, delighted. "That's the spirit. Send the invite, Ethan. Let's see what happens." That afternoon, Ethan scrawled Lena's name on a cream-colored invitation, the gold-embossed card absurdly formal for a housekeeper. He handed it to Victor, who promised to slip it into her mailbox at the guest house. As Victor left, whistling, Ethan felt a twinge of unease, quickly drowned by another sip of bourbon. It was just a prank, a fleeting amusement. What harm could it do? Across the estate, Lena finished her tasks in the kitchen, wiping down counters that gleamed under her care. Despite its decay, the mansion was beautiful, its high ceilings and arched windows whispering of a past she could only imagine. As she scrubbed, she sometimes wondered what it would be like to live in these rooms. Not just clean them, but such thoughts were fleeting. Her real world was the guest house, where her son, Jamal, waited, and her nursing textbooks piled high on the table, promising a future she was building one late night at a time. The sun dipped low as she locked the kitchen door, painting the lawn golden. She didn't know about the envelope waiting in her mailbox, its gold lettering catching the last light. She didn't know that Ethan Hawthorne, standing at his window, watched her silhouette fade into the dusk, a man on the edge of a choice that would unravel his carefully guarded world. But the invitation was there, a spark waiting to ignite, and nothing in Willow Creek would ever be the same. The guest house at the edge of the Hawthorne estate was small but warm, its walls lined with Jamal's colorful science posters and Lena's neatly stacked nursing textbooks. A single lamp glowed on the dining table, casting a soft light over the worn pages of Fundamentals of Anatomy, where Lena's handwritten notes crowded the margins. The clock on the wall ticked past 4 p.m., and the scent of simmering vegetable soup filled the air, a comfort Lena prepared for her son after her long shift at the mansion. Outside, the Willow Creek dusk settled, the cicadas humming a familiar song. This was Lena's sanctuary, a world she had built brick by brick for herself and Jamal, far from the grandeur and ghosts of the main house. She closed her textbook, rubbing her tired eyes. Her days were a careful balance, cleaning the Hawthorne mansion from dawn to mid-afternoon, studying for her online nursing degree in stolen hours, and being fully present for Jamal, her 10-year-old anchor. Her mind drifted to a memory from her childhood in Richmond, where she grew up in a cramped apartment with her mother and grandmother. The neighborhood was tough, its streets buzzing with whispers of who belonged and who didn't. Once, at 12, Lena had overheard a shopkeeper mutter, "Those people always cause trouble," as she bought milk for her family. The words stung, but her grandmother's voice echoed louder. "Stand tall, Lena, even when they don't see you." That lesson had carried her through years of minor slights and big dreams, from waitressing to save for college to landing the Hawthorne job when Jamal was a toddler. Now, nursing was her path to stability, a way to show Jamal that no door was closed to him if he worked hard. The front door burst open, and Jamal bounded in, his backpack bouncing, his face alight with pride. "Mom, I got an A on my science project, the one about constellations." His dark eyes sparkled, and he waved a paper marked with a red star. Lena's exhaustion melted into a smile that transformed her serious features. "That's my boy. I knew you'd nail it." She hugged him, careful not to smudge his school clothes with the faint bleach scent clinging to her hands. "Tell me everything." Jamal plopped onto a chair, words tumbling out. "Mr. Dawson said my star map was the best in class. He thinks I could be an astrophysicist someday, like Neil deGrasse Tyson. I told him, I want to discover and name a new star after you." Lena laughed, her heart swelling. "A star named Lena? I'd settle for you doing your math homework on time." She ruffled his hair. "But you can be anything, Jamal. Anything you set your mind to." Her voice carried a quiet fierceness, born of nights spent studying after he slept, of years spent being looked through by people like Ethan Hawthorne. She worked for Jamal's future, for a life where he wouldn't need to prove his worth to anyone. The moment was interrupted by the clink of the mailbox outside. Lena stepped onto the porch, the evening air cool against her skin. She retrieved a cream-colored envelope, its gold-embossed lettering stark against her calloused fingers. "Miss Lena Carter, you are cordially invited to Ethan Hawthorne's 39th birthday masquerade gala." Her brow furrowed. The Hawthornes didn't invite staff to their parties. It had to be a mistake. She set the envelope on the table, back inside, her mind racing. Jamal glanced at it. "What's that, Mom?" "Just something from work," she said, forcing a smile. "Start your homework. I'll call you for dinner." As Jamal retreated to his room, Lena sank into a chair, staring at the invitation. Curiosity tugged her toward the mansion's back entrance, where she sometimes overheard Ethan and his friends planning lavish events. Tonight, their voices carried from the open patio doors, sharp with laughter. "I can't believe you sent it," a woman's voice, probably Claire, Victor's fiancée, said, giggling. "The housekeeper at a masquerade? What if she shows?" "She won't," Ethan replied, his tone smooth but cold. "And if she does, it'll be the night's entertainment. They are trying to play princess." Victor's chuckle followed. "Pure genius, Ethan. Imagine her face when she walks in and everyone stares." Lena froze, the duster in her hand forgotten. The invitation wasn't a mistake. It was a cruel joke, a game to humiliate her. Her chest tightened, anger and hurt warring within. She had cleaned their messes for 7 years, nodded politely, and stayed invisible. Now, they wanted to make her a spectacle. She returned to the guest house, the envelope burning in her pocket. Jamal looked up from his math worksheet. "Mom, you okay? You look mad." She forced a smile, tucking the invitation into a drawer. "Just tired, baby. How's that homework coming?" She sat beside him, guiding him through fractions, but her mind was elsewhere. The laughter, Ethan's casual cruelty, echoed in her head. She should ignore the invitation and let it gather dust. But another voice, her grandmother's, fierce and unyielding, whispered back, "Stand tall." She thought of Jamal, the world he'd face, where people would try to put him in a box. If she hid now, what would she teach him? After Jamal went to bed, Lena pulled out her phone and dialed a number she rarely called. "Jasmine? It's Lena. I need a favor. Do you still have that silver dress from your sister's wedding?" Jasmine, her friend from nursing classes, laughed. "Girl, you planning to turn heads? What's the occasion?" Lena hesitated, then said, "A party. One I wasn't supposed to attend." Her voice hardened with resolve. "I'm going, Jasmine. Not for them. For me. She hung up, staring at the drawer where the invitation lay. The Hawthorne mansion blazed with light, its grand ballroom transformed into a glittering stage for Willow Creek's elite. Crystal chandeliers cast prisms across polished floors, and masked guests in velvet and silk swirled through the air thick with perfume and anticipation. Ethan Hawthorne stood near the bar, a minimalist black mask barely concealing his sharp features. His tailored suit hugged his frame, but his posture was restless, a glass of champagne dangling from his fingers. The masquerade, his 39th birthday spectacle, was in full swing, yet boredom gnawed at him. The same faces, whispered rivalries, and hollow laughter were all a performance, and he was tired of playing his part. Victor Langston, his friend and co-conspirator, leaned in, his peacock feather mask glinting. Quite the turnout, Ethan. The whole county's here to kiss the Hawthorne ring. His grin was sly. Still no sign of your special guest, though. Pity. I was hoping for a show. Ethan smirked, remembering the prank invitation to Lena Carter, his housekeeper, sparking a flicker of amusement. He said she knows better than to show up, sipping his drink. It was a lark, Victor. Let's not get our hopes up for drama. But his words carried a trace of unease, a crack in his usual bravado. He scanned the room, half expecting, half dreading, to see her. The orchestra shifted to a waltz, and the crowd parted, a hush rippling through the entrance. A woman stood framed in the doorway, her silver dress catching the chandelier light like a moonbeam. Her dark curls were swept up, a few tendrils framing a delicate silver mask that shielded her eyes but not her presence. She moved quietly, her chin lifted, her shoulders squared, as if she belonged. Whispers spread like wildfire. Who is she? Ethan's glass froze halfway to his lips. It was Lena. Not the housekeeper in faded jeans and a scarf, but a vision who commanded the room. His prank, meant to mock, had summoned something else entirely. Victor let out a low whistle. Well, I'll be damned. She came. Ethan couldn't speak. His chest tightened, a mix of shock and something sharper. Shame, perhaps, or admiration. Lena glided forward, her steps deliberate, ignoring the stares. She didn't seek Ethan or his friends. She existed in the space, claiming it as her own. The room, so accustomed to artifice, seemed to pause, drawn to her authenticity. Dr. Henry Ellison, a retired physician with a kind face, and his wife, Clara, approached her first. "Lena, my dear," Clara said warmly, her gold mask glinting. "You look stunning. Come, tell us about your nursing studies." They drew her into conversation, their ease disarming the crowd's curiosity. Lena smiled, her warmth genuine, not the practiced politeness she used while working. "Thank you, Mrs. Ellison," she said, her voice steady. "I'm close to finishing my degree. It's been a long road, but it's worth it. Her words were simple, but carried a weight that silenced nearby eavesdroppers. Guests, intrigued, drifted closer, drawn to her quiet confidence. A young lawyer asked about her studies. A councilwoman complimented her dress. Lena answered each with poise, her laughter soft but infectious. Ethan watched, stunned. The woman he had invited as a joke was now the center of a growing circle, outshining the elite he had meant to impress. His birthday party felt distant, and the guest's attention was no longer his. Victor nudged him, chuckling. This backfired spectacularly. Who knew the help could steal the show? "Stop calling her that," Ethan snapped, surprising himself. His voice was sharper than intended, and Victor raised an eyebrow. "Touchy, are we?" "It was your idea, mate." Ethan set his glass down, driven by an impulse he didn't understand. He moved toward Lena's circle, where she was laughing with Clara about a hospital anecdote. As he approached, the conversations faltered, eyes turning to him. Lena looked up, meeting his gaze directly for the first time in 7 years of her service. There was no anger in her eyes, no accusation, just a calm assessment that made him feel suddenly small. "Mr. Hawthorne," she said, her tone polite but firm, "thank you for the invitation." The words were neutral, but her gaze held the truth. She knew the invitation's intent and had come anyway. Ethan swallowed, his throat dry. "You're welcome, Lena," he said, the words sounding hollow. "I'm glad you could come." Around them, the crowd watched, sensing the undercurrent. Lena's lips curved slightly, not a smile, but an acknowledgement. "It's a beautiful room. I've cleaned it many times, but it's different tonight." The simple truth of her statement hung between them. For years, she had polished these floors, arranged these flowers, prepared this space for parties she was never meant to attend. Now, she stood in its center, undeniable. Ethan felt heat creep up his neck, a flush of guilt he couldn't name. "Would you like a drink?" he offered, grasping for something to say. "No, thank you," Lena replied, her voice steady. "I won't keep you from your guests." She turned back to Clara, effectively dismissing him. The crowd resumed their chatter, but Ethan felt their eyes on him. The joke had turned, and he was the punchline. He retreated to the bar, his mind churning. Lena moved through the room, never lingering too long, never seeking attention, yet drawing it effortlessly. Her presence was a quiet rebellion, a refusal to be what he had expected. Small, invisible, humiliated. As the orchestra played on, Ethan watched her from a distance, unable to look away. For the first time, he saw not the housekeeper, but Lena Carter, a woman who had walked into his world and changed it with a single step. The morning after this masquerade, the Hawthorne mansion was a battlefield of excess. Empty champagne flutes littered the ballroom. Confetti clung to the polished floors, and the air held a faint tang of spilled wine. Ethan Hawthorne woke with a throbbing headache, the remnants of too many drinks and a restless night. He stood at the top of the grand staircase, his shirt rumpled, his hair uncombed, staring at the chaos below. The party had been a triumph by Willow Creek standards, yet he felt hollow, the memory of Lena Carter in her silver dress burning in his mind. She had walked into his world, not as the housekeeper he'd mocked, but as a woman who made his carefully curated gala feel small. Downstairs, Lena moved through the ballroom with practiced efficiency, her work boots silent against the hardwood. She wore her usual jeans and a faded blue shirt, her braid tucked under a scarf, but her posture was different, straighter, as if the night before had left a trace of defiance in her spine. She gathered glasses onto a tray, her face composed, betraying no hint of the spectacle she'd been just hours ago. Ethan watched her from the balcony, his hands gripping the railing. The prank he'd orchestrated with Victor, inviting Lena to humiliate her, had backfired, exposing not her vulnerability, but his cruelty. The realization churned in his gut, sharper than any hangover. He descended the stairs, his footsteps echoing in the vast room. Lena glanced up, her dark eyes meeting his briefly, before returning to her work. The silence between them was heavy, charged with unspoken truths. Ethan cleared his throat, his voice rough. "Lena," he began, pausing as she set down a glass with deliberate care. "About last night." She straightened, wiping her hands on a cloth, her expression unreadable. "Yes, Mr. Hawthorne?" Her tone was polite and professional, but there was an edge to it, a challenge that made him falter. He shifted, his usual charm failing him. "I owe you an apology. The invitation, it was a mistake, a cruel one. I didn't expect you to come, and when you did..." He trailed off, searching for words that wouldn't sound hollow. You weren't what I expected. I was wrong to make you a joke. Lena's gaze held his, steady and unflinching. I didn't come for you, Mr. Hawthorne, she said, her voice low but firm. I came for me, to be seen, not as your housekeeper, but as myself. You don't get to decide what that means. Her words landed like a quiet blow, cutting through his defenses. She didn't raise her voice, didn't accuse, but her clarity made him feel smaller than any shout could have. Ethan nodded, his throat tight. I understand. Or I'm starting to. I'm sorry, Lena. Truly. He hesitated, then added, You were remarkable last night. You changed the room. Her lips twitched, not quite a smile. I've been in that room for 7 years, cleaning it. Last night was just the first time you noticed. She picked up her tray, moving toward the kitchen, leaving him standing in the wreckage of his own making. Ethan lingered, the weight of her words settling over him. He wandered outside to the garden, where the morning sun filtered through overgrown roses, their thorns sharp against the fading blooms. In the distance, he saw Jamal, Lena's son, kicking a soccer ball against the guest house wall. The boy's laughter was bright, unguarded, starkly contrasting to the mansion's gloom. Ethan realized he knew almost nothing about them. Lena, who had worked under his roof for years, or Jamal, who lived on his property, yet felt like a stranger. How had he looked past them for so long? He returned to the study, the bourbon decanter tempting but untouched. His Aunt Margaret's voice echoed in his mind, her disapproval from yesterday. You're a Hawthorne. Act like one. But what did that mean? Clinging to a name that felt heavier each year? Throwing parties to mask a crumbling legacy? He thought of Lena's poise, how she'd stood tall in a room meant to diminish her. She had something he lacked, a purpose, a quiet strength that didn't need a mansion to prove its worth. By noon, the ballroom was spotless, Lena's work erasing the night's excess. Ethan found her in the kitchen, checking a clipboard for the day's tasks. He approached, hesitating at the doorway. Lena, he said, his voice softer now. Can I ask you something? She looked up, her expression wary but open. What is it? Why did you come last night? He asked. You knew it was a setup. Why put yourself through that? Lena set the clipboard down, considering her answer. Because I'm tired of being invisible, she said. Not just to you, but to everyone in this town who thinks they know my place. I wanted one night where I wasn't just the woman who cleans your floors. I tried to walk in and be seen. Ethan nodded, her words sinking deep. You were seen, he said quietly. More than you know. She studied him for a moment, then picked up her clipboard. I have work to do, Mr. Hawthorne. She moved past him, her steps steady, leaving a faint scent of lemon cleaner in her wake. As Ethan watched her go, something shifted inside him, a crack in the cynicism he'd worn like armor. He thought of the masquerade and how Lena's presence had eclipsed his carefully planned spectacle. She hadn't just attended. She'd rewritten the night's story. For the first time, Ethan wondered what else he'd failed to see, not just in Lena, but in himself. The apology was a start, but it wasn't enough. He didn't know what came next. But standing in the empty kitchen, he felt a pull towards something real beyond the Hawthorne name. Outside, Jamal's soccer ball thudded against the wall, a reminder of lives lived just beyond his reach, lives he was beginning to want to understand. The guest house glowed softly in the late afternoon, its windows catching the golden light of Willow Creek's fading summer. Inside, Jamal Carter sat at the dining table, His science notebook opened to a sketch of a spiral galaxy, stars drawn with careful pencil strokes. A half-eaten apple rested beside him, and the hum of a ceiling fan stirred the warm air. The 10-year-old's face, usually bright with curiosity, was clouded today, his brow furrowed as he stared at his drawing. 2 days ago, the masquerade party at the Hawthorne mansion had rippled through the town, and its aftershocks had reached him at school. Whispers followed him in the hallways, words he didn't fully understand, but felt like thorns. Lena entered from the kitchen, her work apron slung over a chair, her hands still damp from washing dishes. She noticed Jamal's quietness immediately. "Hey, Starboy," she said, using his favorite nickname. "What's got you so serious? That galaxy giving you trouble?" Jamal looked up, his dark eyes hesitant. "Mom, why are people talking about you? At school today, Tommy Grayson said you crashed Mr. Hawthorne's fancy party. He said, you didn't belong there." His voice wavered, and he fiddled with his pencil. "Is that true?" Lena's heart sank, but she kept her expression steady. She pulled a chair beside him, sitting close. "No, baby, I didn't crash anything. I was invited to that party, fair and square. I went because I wanted to, not because I was trying to be something I'm not." She touched his hand gently. "Some folks don't like seeing us step out of where they think we belong. But we have decided on our place, Jamal. Always." He nodded slowly, but his frown lingered. "Tommy said his dad thinks you're just after Mr. Hawthorne's money. I told him that's stupid. You work harder than anyone. But why do they care so much?" Lena sighed, choosing her words carefully. "People talk when they don't understand or are scared of change. I being at that party shook things up. It's not about money. It's about them not liking that I walked in like I belonged. But I did belong, because I'm just as much a person as they are." She smiled, trying to lighten his mood. "Besides, I wore a pretty great dress. Should have seen their faces." Jamal managed a slight grin. "Was it like a movie star dress?" "Something like that," Lena said, ruffling his hair. "Now, tell me about this galaxy. You naming it after me yet?" He brightened, flipping the page to show his sketch. "It's Andromeda, but I'm pretending I discovered it. Mr. Dawson says I could be an astrophysicist, like studying stars for real. But," his voice dropped, "some kids say I'm weird for liking science so much. They say I'm just the housekeeper's kid." Lena's chest tightened, but she kept her voice firm. "You listen to me, Jamal Carter. You're not just anything. You're smart, kind, and have dreams bigger than this town's. Those kids, they're repeating what they hear at home. Don't let them dim your shine." She tapped his notebook. "Keep drawing those stars. One day, you'll show them all." Jamal nodded, his shoulders straightening. "Okay, Mom. I'm going to make a whole star map for my next project. I'll put you in it like you said." "That's my boy," Lena said, kissing his forehead. As he dove back into his sketch, she stood, her mind heavy. The gossip wasn't just about her. It was touching Jamal, her reason for everything. She thought of Ethan's apology that morning, his awkward sincerity. He'd seen her, maybe for the first time, but the town's whispers were louder, and they could hurt her son. Outside, Ethan stood on the mansion's terrace, the cold summer air against his skin. He leaned against the railing, watching the guest house in the distance. Jamal's soccer ball lay abandoned in the grass, a reminder of the boy's energy. Ethan hadn't slept well since the masquerade, Lena's words echoing, "I came for me, to be seen." He'd meant to humiliate her, but she'd turned the night on its head, exposing his shallowness. The town's gossip was spreading. Victor had called earlier, chuckling about the housekeeper who stole the show. But Ethan didn't laugh. He felt a need to understand the woman he'd overlooked for years. He wandered toward the guest house, not sure what he'd say. Through the window, he saw Lena and Jamal at the table, her hand on his, their heads bent together. The sight stirred something unfamiliar, a longing for connection, for something real. He thought of his childhood, raised in the mansion's cold halls, his father distant, his mother's garden the only warmth he'd known. Lena and Jamal had a closeness he envied, a life built on love, not legacy. He hesitated, then turned back, not wanting to intrude. But as he walked away, Jamal's voice carried through the open window, excited about his stars. Ethan paused, a faint smile tugging at his lips. He didn't know them, not really, but he wanted to. The prank had been a mistake, but it had opened his eyes. Lena wasn't just the housekeeper, and Jamal wasn't just her kid. They were a family, with dreams and struggles he'd never considered. For the first time, Ethan felt the weight of his emptiness, and a spark of something new, a desire to be more than the man who'd written that cruel invitation. Back in the guest house, Lena tucked Jamal's notebook away as he headed to wash up for dinner. She opened the drawer where the invitation lay, its gold lettering a reminder of the night she'd claimed her place. The town could whisper, but she wouldn't hide. For Jamal, for herself, she'd keep standing tall. And somewhere deep down, she wondered if Ethan's apology meant he was starting to see her, not as a joke, but as the woman she'd always been. The kitchen of the Hawthorne mansion gleamed under the morning light, its marble counters spotless from Lena Carter's meticulous care. She quickly completed her tasks, restocking pantry shelves and checking her clipboard for the week's supplies. The air smelled faintly of coffee and lemon polish, a familiar rhythm to her days. But since the masquerade, something had shifted. Her steps were lighter, her gaze less guarded, as if the silver dress had left an invisible mark. Lena felt the weight of the town's whispers, but she held her head high, carrying the memory of that night like a shield. Outside, Ethan Hawthorne paced the garden path, the gravel crunching under his loafers. His usual polish was frayed, no tie, sleeves rolled up, a restless energy in his stride. The apology he'd offered Lena in the ballroom days ago lingered, incomplete. Her words, "I came for me," had cracked something open in him, exposing a life built on hollow gestures. He wanted to do more, to prove he wasn't the man who'd sent that cruel invitation. In his study the previous night, he'd ordered a set of new nursing textbooks, their glossy covers starkly contrasting to the worn ones he'd glimpsed in the guest house. The package now sat on the kitchen counter, addressed to Lena, a silent offering he hoped would bridge the gap he'd created. Lena entered the kitchen from the pantry and stopped short, spotting the box. Her name was scrawled on the label in Ethan's sharp handwriting. She opened it, revealing pristine textbooks, their pages crisp with promise. She ran her fingers over the covers momentarily, tempted by their newness. Then her jaw tightened. She knew what this was. Charity, a gesture to ease his guilt. She'd spent years earning her place, scraping funds for secondhand books, studying by lamplight while Jamal slept. This gift, however well-intentioned, felt like a reminder of her place in his world. When Ethan entered the kitchen later that morning, he found Lena waiting, the box resealed beside her. "Did you get the books?" he asked, his tone aiming for casual but betraying a nervous edge. "Yes," Lena said, her voice steady. "They're thoughtful, Mr. Hawthorne, but I can't accept them." She slid the box toward him. "I've worked hard for everything I have, even if it's not much. My books are worn, but they're mine. I earned them." Ethan blinked, caught off guard. "I just wanted to help," he said, his hands fidgeting. "They'd make things easier for you." Lena's eyes softened, but her resolve held firm. "I appreciate the thought. I do. But if you want to help, There's something better you could do." She paused, choosing her words. "Jamal's school doesn't have a proper science lab. They need equipment, microscopes, test kits, things like that. It would help him and all the kids in his class, not just me." Ethan nodded slowly, her words sinking in. He'd expected gratitude, not a challenge, but her refusal stirred something in him. Respect, mingled with humility. "I can do that," he said, his voice quieter now. "I'll look into it. For Jamal and the others." "Thank you," Lena said, her tone professional but warm. She picked up her clipboard and moved toward the door, leaving Ethan with the box and a new perspective. Her independence wasn't just pride, it was strength, the kind he'd never needed to cultivate. That afternoon, Ethan called the principal of Willow Creek Elementary, offering to fund a science lab. By evening, he'd arranged for 10 microscopes, test tubes, and lab coats, his savings covering the cost. The act felt different from his usual displays of wealth. No grand announcement, no expectation of applause. It was practical, purposeful, and tied to Lena's quiet suggestion. Jamal burst into the guest house 2 days later, his backpack swinging wildly. "Mom, you won't believe it. We got new microscopes at school, real ones, and slides, and these cool lab coats." His eyes shone with excitement, his voice tumbling over itself. Principal Carter said it was a donation from the Hawthorne family. "That's your boss." Lena's breath caught, surprise softening her features. "Yes, that's right," she said, setting down her nursing notes. "That's something, Jamal." She felt a flicker of warmth toward Ethan, unexpected and unsettling. He'd listened, not just to her words, but to what mattered to her son. Across the estate, Ethan stood in his study, the bourbon decanter untouched. He'd received a thank you note from the school, but it was Lena's reaction he wondered about. Before he could dwell on it, his Aunt Margaret swept in, her pearl necklace gleaming, her expression sharp. "Ethan, what's this I hear about you throwing money at that boy's school? First the party stunt, now this? People are talking." "Let them," Ethan said, his tone firmer than usual. "It's a good cause. Jamal's a bright kid, and the school needed it." Margaret's eyes narrowed. "Jamal? You're on a first-name basis with the housekeeper's son now? You're a Hawthorne, Ethan. This fraternizing is beneath you. Your father would—" "My father isn't here," Ethan cut in, his voice low but steady. "And he'd approve of helping a kid who loves science." He met her gaze, unyielding. "I'm not the man you think I am, Aunt Margaret." "Not anymore." Margaret stiffened, her heels clicking as she left. Ethan turned to the window, the guest house a warm speck in the dusk. Lena's refusal of his gift had stung, but it had also shown him something tangible. A woman who valued her effort over his wealth, who cared more for her son's future than for easy fixes. For the first time, Ethan felt a spark of purpose, a desire to be more than the man who'd laughed at a cruel joke. He didn't know where this path led, but as he watched the guest house's light flicker, he knew he wanted to follow it. The dining room of the Hawthorne mansion, usually reserved for formal gatherings, felt different tonight. A simple oak table was set with mismatched plates, a vase of wildflowers plucked from the garden at its center. The chandelier was dimmed, casting a soft glow over the room, and the scent of homemade lasagna, Ethan's attempt at cooking, wafted from the kitchen. Ethan Hawthorne stood at the stove, stirring sauce with a nervous focus, his sleeves rolled up, a dish towel slung over his shoulder. He'd invited Lena Carter and her son Jamal for dinner, not as employees, but as guests, a gesture born of a desire to bridge the gap he'd widened with his cruel prank weeks ago. Tonight, he wanted something real, not the polished pretense of his usual world. Lena arrived at the mansion's front door, Jamal at her side, his sneakers scuffing the porch. She wore a simple green dress, her braid loose for once, and Jamal clutched a rolled-up star chart, his eyes wide with curiosity. Lena hesitated before knocking, her hand lingering. Accepting Ethan's invitation felt like stepping into uncharted territory, but his school donation, microscopes and lab coats for Jamal's class, had shown a sincerity she couldn't ignore. "Be polite," she whispered to Jamal, who nodded, though his excitement was barely contained. Ethan opened the door himself, a rare act that made Lena pause. "Welcome," he said, his smile genuine but tinged with nerves. "Come in. Dinner's almost ready." Jamal's jaw dropped as he stepped into the grand entryway, its marble floors gleaming. "This place is enormous," he said, craning his neck to see the vaulted ceiling. "Do you live here all alone?" Ethan chuckled, leading them to the dining room. "Most of the time. It's too big for one person, honestly." He glanced at Lena, who met his gaze with a cautious smile. "I'm glad you're here." They sat, the lasagna slightly overbaked, but warm and hearty. Jamal dug in, his enthusiasm breaking the initial awkwardness. He said, "This is awesome, Mr. Hawthorne," smudging his chin with sauce. "Mom makes spaghetti, but this is different." "Did you learn it from a cookbook?" "Something like that," Ethan said, grinning. "I used to watch my mother cook when I was your age. She loved this garden out back and grew her herbs. It's overgrown now, but—" He trailed off, then brightened. "Jamal, you like science, right? There's a patch with plants from all over. Roses from France, lavender from England. Want to see it tomorrow?" Jamal's eyes lit up. "Really? Like a botanical experiment? Count me in." He launched into a story about his latest science project, mapping constellations, his hands waving as he described Orion's belt. Ethan listened, asking questions about stars and telescopes, his interest unfeigned. Lena watched, surprised by his ease. This wasn't the cynical heir she'd known for 7 years. This was a man engaging with her son, seeing him as more than the housekeeper's kid. "You're good with him," she said softly, as Jamal paused to eat. "He doesn't usually open up this fast." Ethan shrugged, a faint flush on his cheeks. "He's easy to talk to. It reminds me of myself at that age. I was always curious. My mother encouraged it before—" He stopped, his gaze distant, before the family legacy took over. Lena nodded, understanding the weight of unspoken history. "Jamal's got big dreams. Astrophysics. I want him to know nothing's out of reach." "It's not," Ethan said, meeting her eyes. "Not for him. Not with you as his mom." The sincerity in his voice caught her off guard, and for a moment, the room felt smaller, the space between them charged with possibility. After dinner, they cleared the table together, Jamal insisting on helping. As Lena stacked plates, Ethan's hand brushed hers, a fleeting touch that made her pause. He pulled back, apologetic, but she smiled faintly, the moment lingering. Jamal, oblivious, chattered about a meteor shower he wanted to watch. He suggested we could see it from the garden, looking at Ethan. "Sure thing," Ethan said. "We'll make a plan." As they said goodnight, Lena felt a warmth she hadn't expected, a sense of family that was both foreign and comforting. Beyond the mansion, Willow Creek buzzed with talk of Ethan's actions. At a town council meeting that week, Dr. Henry Ellison praised the school donation, his voice carrying weight among the townsfolk. "Ethan Hawthorne stepped up," he said, adjusting his glasses. "That science lab's a game changer for our kids." Some nodded, impressed. Others whispered, skeptical of the heir's motives. Was he softening, or was this a publicity stunt, tied to his housekeeper's bold appearance at the masquerade? The gossip grew, fueled by Margaret Hawthorne's allies, who saw Lena's presence as threatening the family's standing. Lena felt the scrutiny at the grocery store, where glances followed her and conversations hushed. She ignored them, selecting apples for Jamal with steady hands, but the whispers stung. She thought of the dinner, of Ethan's laughter with her son, and wondered if this fragile connection was worth the town's judgment. She tucked Jamal into bed at the guest house, his star chart pinned above his desk. "Was Mr. Hawthorne nice?" he asked, yawning. "He was," Lena said, smoothing his blanket. "He's trying to be, at least." As Jamal drifted off, she sat by her textbooks, the invitation's memory heavy. The dinner had been a step, but the town's eyes watched, and Margaret's disapproval loomed. Lena knew this path wasn't simple, but as she opened her book, a quiet resolve settled in her heart. She wouldn't let whispers define her, not for Jamal or herself. The study in the Hawthorne mansion was a time capsule of faded glory, its mahogany shelves heavy with legal tomes and dust-covered ledgers. Ethan Hawthorne stood amidst cardboard boxes, packing away decades of family papers under the dim glow of a desk lamp. The air smelled of old leather and ink, a reminder of the legacy he'd inherited, but never fully understood. Weeks had passed since the dinner with Lena and Jamal, and their warmth lingered in his mind, a stark contrast to the mansion's cold silence. Ethan's life, once defined by parties and privilege, felt hollow, and he was beginning to question what being a Hawthorne truly meant. As he cleared a shelf, his hand brushed a slim leather journal wedged behind a row of tax records. Its worn cover was unmarked, its pages yellowed. Curious, Ethan opened it. Recognizing his father's precise handwriting, Richard Hawthorne had been a distant figure, a man of stern duty, who died when Ethan was 20, leaving behind expectations, but little warmth. The journal, however, revealed a different man. Entries spanned years, starting from Ethan's childhood, each one a quiet confession. "The Hawthorne name is a weight I've carried too long," one read. "It's built on exclusion, on a past that glorified some and erased others. I want more for Ethan, a life of purpose, not pride." Ethan's breath caught as he turned the pages. An entry from 7 years ago stopped him cold. "Hired a new housekeeper today, Lena Carter. She's raising a son alone, studying to be a nurse. There's a dignity in her, a strength Catherine would have admired. I see her moving through this house, invisible to most, and I wonder if Ethan will ever notice. She could teach him what I failed to, the value of ordinary lives that outshine our hollow prestige." Catherine, Ethan's mother, had been the family's heart, and her garden was a refuge until her death. His father's raw and hopeful words hit Ethan like a wave, stirring guilt and revelation. He sank into the desk chair, the journal open in his hands. His father had seen Lena's worth from the start, hiring her not just for work, but as a quiet challenge to his son's blindness. Ethan thought of the masquerade, Lena's silver dress, her refusal of his gift, and the dinner where Jamal's laughter filled the room. She had changed him, just as his father had hoped, but it had taken a cruel prank to open his eyes. Tears pricked his vision, not for the legacy he'd clung to, but for the years he'd wasted not seeing what was right before him. He needed to share this with Lena. He dialed her number, his voice unsteady. "Lena, it's Ethan. Can you come to the main house? There's something I need to show you." Lena arrived 20 minutes later, concerned about etching her features. She'd left Jamal with a neighbor, but his bedtime was delayed due to this unexpected call. The study's lamplight cast shadows across her face as she stood in the doorway, her work jacket slung over one arm. "Is everything okay, Mr. Hawthorne?" she asked, her tone cautious but open. Ethan handed her the journal, open to the entry about her. "I found this tonight. It's my father's. Please read it." Lena's eyes scanned the page, widening as she read. She traced the words with a finger, her breath catching. "I had no idea," she whispered. "He was always kind, but this... He saw me." She looked up, her gaze meeting Ethan's. "Why show me this now?" "Because it changes everything," Ethan said, his voice thick. "My father wanted me to be different, to see people like you, not just as staff, but as real. He hired you for me, Lena, to show me what matters. And I failed him until now." He paused, his hands clenching. "You and Jamal, you're not invisible to me anymore. I want to honor what my father saw, what you've shown me. I'm considering turning this estate into something for everyone, a community center where people like Jamal can learn and grow. No more walls, no more exclusion." Lena set the journal down, her expression a mix of wonder and caution. "That's a big step, Ethan. This house, your family's name, it's who you are." "Are you sure?" "I'm sure I don't want to be the man who invited you to that party as a joke," he said, stepping closer. "You changed the room that night, Lena. You're changing me. I don't know how to do this yet, but I want to try for my father, you, and Jamal." Lena studied him, her eyes searching. "Your father saw me," but she said softly, "This is your choice now. It won't be easy. People will fight it. Your aunt, the town. They'll tell you you're throwing away your legacy." "Let them," Ethan said, a fire in his voice. "The real legacy is what we build, not what we inherit." He gestured to the journal. "He believed in you. I'm beginning to believe in us." Lena nodded, a faint smile touching her lips. She said I should get back to Jamal, but her tone held a new warmth. "Thank you for showing me this. It means more than you know." As she left, Ethan stood alone in the study, the journal a weight in his hands. His father's words had lit a path he hadn't seen before, one where Lena and Jamal were not just part of his world, but its center. The idea of a community center felt right, a way to break down the walls his family had built. But he knew the cost: Margaret's wrath, the town's judgment, his uncertainty. Still, as he looked out at the guest house's distant light, he felt a spark of purpose, a chance to be the man his father had hoped for, the man Lena deserved. Part 8. The Journal's Truth. The study in the Hawthorne mansion was a time capsule of faded glory, its mahogany shelves heavy with legal tomes and dust-covered ledgers. Ethan Hawthorne stood amidst cardboard boxes, packing away decades of family papers under the dim glow of a desk lamp. The air smelled of old leather and ink, a reminder of the legacy he'd inherited but never fully understood. Weeks had passed since the dinner with Lena and Jamal, and their warmth lingered in his mind, a stark contrast to the mansion's cold silence. Ethan's life, once defined by parties and privilege, felt hollow, and he was beginning to question what being a Hawthorne truly meant. As he cleared a shelf, his hand brushed a slim leather journal wedged behind a row of tax records. Its worn cover was unmarked, its pages yellowed. Curious, Ethan opened it, recognizing his father's precise handwriting. Richard Hawthorne had been a distant figure, a man of stern duty who died when Ethan was 20, leaving behind expectations but little warmth. The journal, however, revealed a different man. Entries spanned years, starting from Ethan's childhood, each one a quiet confession. "The Hawthorne name is a weight I've carried too long," one read. "It's built on exclusion, on a past that glorified some and erased others. I want more for Ethan, a life of purpose, not pride." Ethan's breath caught as he turned the pages. An entry from 7 years ago stopped him cold. "Hired a new housekeeper today, Lena Carter. She's raising a son alone, studying to be a nurse. There's a dignity in her, a strength Catherine would have admired. I see her moving through this house, invisible to most, and I wonder if Ethan will ever notice. She could teach him what I failed to, the value of ordinary lives that outshine our hollow prestige. Catherine, Ethan's mother, had been the family's heart, and her garden was a refuge until her death. His father's raw and hopeful words hit Ethan like a wave, stirring guilt and revelation. He sank into the desk chair, the journal open in his hands. His father had seen Lena's worth from the start, hiring her not just for work, but as a quiet challenge to his son's blindness. Ethan thought of the masquerade, Lena's silver dress, her refusal of his gift, and the dinner where Jamal's laughter filled the room. She had changed him, just as his father had hoped, but it had taken a cruel prank to open his eyes. Tears pricked his vision, not for the legacy he'd clung to, but for the years he'd wasted not seeing what was right before him. He needed to share this with Lena. He dialed her number, his voice unsteady. "Lena, it's Ethan. Can you come to the main house? There's something I need to show you." Lena arrived 20 minutes later, concerned about etching her features. She'd left Jamal with a neighbor, but his bedtime was delayed due to this unexpected call. The study's lamplight cast shadows across her face as she stood in the doorway, her work jacket slung over one arm. "Is everything okay, Mr. Hawthorne?" she asked, her tone cautious but open. Ethan handed her the journal, open to the entry about her. "I found this tonight. It's my father's. Please read it." Lena's eyes scanned the page, widening as she read. She traced the words with a finger, her breath catching. "I had no idea," she whispered. "He was always kind. But this, he saw me." She looked up, her gaze meeting Ethan's. "Why show me this now?" "Because it changes everything," Ethan said, his voice thick. "My father wanted me to be different, to see people like you, not just as staff, but as real. He hired you for me, Lena, to show me what matters. And I failed him until now." He paused, his hands clenching. "You and Jamal, you're not invisible to me anymore. I want to honor what my father saw, what you've shown me. I'm considering turning this estate into something for everyone, a community center where people like Jamal can learn and grow. No more walls, no more exclusion." Lena set the journal down, her expression a mix of wonder and caution. "That's a big step, Ethan. This house, your family's name, it's who you are." "Are you sure?" "I'm sure I don't want to be the man who invited you to that party as a joke," he said, stepping closer. "You changed the room that night, Lena. You're changing me. I don't know how to do this yet, but I want to try for my father, you, and Jamal." Lena studied him, her eyes searching. "Your father saw me," but she said softly, "This is your choice now. It won't be easy. People will fight it. Your aunt, the town. They'll tell you you're throwing away your legacy." "Let them," Ethan said, a fire in his voice. "The real legacy is what we build, not what we inherit." He gestured to the journal. "He believed in you. I'm beginning to believe in us." Lena nodded, a faint smile touching her lips. She said I should get back to Jamal, but her tone held a new warmth. "Thank you for showing me this. It means more than you know." As she left, Ethan stood alone in the study, the journal a weight in his hands. His father's words had lit a path he hadn't seen before, one where Lena and Jamal were not just part of his world, but its center. The idea of a community center felt right, a way to break down the walls his family had built. But he knew the cost: Margaret's wrath, the town's judgment, his uncertainty. Still, as he looked out at the guest house's distant light, he felt a spark of purpose, a chance to be the man his father had hoped for, the man Lena deserved. The front lawn of the Hawthorne mansion buzzed with anticipation, and a small crowd of reporters and townsfolk gathered under ancient oak trees. Ethan Hawthorne stood on a makeshift podium, his suit crisp, but his hands unsteady, gripping a single note card. The morning air was crisp, carrying the scent of dew-soaked grass, and the mansion loomed behind him, its peeling columns a silent witness to his decision. Inspired by his father's journal and Lena's strength, Ethan had spent sleepless nights planning this moment. Today, he would redefine the Hawthorne legacy, not as a monument to exclusion, but as a gift to Willow Creek. "Thank you for coming," Ethan began, his voice steady despite the knot in his chest. "The Hawthorne family has shaped this town for generations. Our name is on its streets, buildings, and this land. But that legacy has been about who belongs and who doesn't. That ends now." He paused, meeting the eyes of curious reporters. "I'm converting the Hawthorne estate into the Willow Creek Community Center, a library, learning spaces, public gardens, open to all. The main house will honor our history, the whole history, not just my family's story. I'm moving to a smaller home on Cedar Lane, which I bought with my savings. It's time for new beginnings." Gasps rippled through the crowd, followed by murmurs. A reporter raised a hand. "Mr. Hawthorne, what prompted this? And where will you go?" Ethan smiled faintly. "Somewhere real. I've learned that home isn't a mansion. It's where you find meaning." Questions erupted, but he answered calmly, detailing a trust to maintain the property, separate from the family fortune. As cameras flashed, Lena watched from the kitchen window, her hands still in dishwater, her heart pounding. This was more than she'd expected, not an apology, but a sacrifice that shook the town's foundations. By noon, Willow Creek was alight with reactions. Dr. Bistum, Henry Ellison praised Ethan's vision at the country club, calling it a gift to our children. But others whispered of scandal, questioning why the heir would throw away his heritage. In the guest house, Lena sat with Jamal, who was sketching a comet. "Mom, is Mr. Hawthorne giving up his big house?" he asked, his pencil pausing. "Does that mean we have to move?" "No, baby," Lena said, smoothing his hair. "He's making the mansion for everyone, like a big library. We'll stay here for now." But her voice hid worry. Ethan's decision, noble as it was, would stir trouble, and she felt its shadow creeping closer. That afternoon, Margaret Hawthorne stormed into the mansion's study, her face flushed with fury. "Have you lost your mind?" she demanded, her pearl necklace trembling and turning our ancestral home into a public park. "Your father would be horrified." Ethan stood behind the desk, his father's journal tucked away, but its words fueling him. "My father wanted me to find a purpose, Aunt Margaret. Aunt, this house has been a museum to a past that doesn't serve anyone. I'm done living by dead men's rules." Margaret's eyes narrowed. "You're not just risking the house. The family trust has provisions. If you dishonor our name, I can redirect the funds to distant cousins. You'll be left with nothing." Ethan's jaw tightened, but he held her gaze. "I've got enough saved from investments to start over. I'm consulting for nonprofits now, building something of my own. The trust can go to whoever wants it. I don't need it to be me." She gasped, clutching her purse. "This is about that housekeeper, Lena Carter, turning your head with her audacity. I've already spoken to the nursing board. They're reviewing her ethics and her involvement with you. People are talking, Ethan." Ethan's fists clenched. "Leave Lena out of this. She's done nothing but work hard and raise a good kid. If anyone's dishonored the family, it's me, with that stupid prank. I'm fixing that now." Margaret turned, her heels clicking sharply as she left. "You'll regret this," she called over her shoulder. Ethan sank into the chair, his resolve shaken, but intact. He thought of Lena, of Jamal's comet sketch, and knew he couldn't turn back. That evening, Lena faced her storm. A board member called her in at her nursing program's office, citing concerns about her professionalism due to her association with Ethan. "We're a small town, Miss Carter," the woman said, her tone clipped. "Rumors can affect your certification." Lena held her composure, explaining her dedication, but the warning lingered. Later, Jamal came home from school, his eyes red. He mumbled that some kid said you're only nice to Mr. Hawthorne for his money. I told them it's not true, but they laughed. Lena pulled him close, her heart aching. "You know who we are, Jamal. We don't need their approval." But as he nodded against her shoulder, she felt the weight of the town's judgment. Ethan's announcement, meant to unite, was tearing at her world. She found Ethan staring at the darkening garden on the mansion's terrace. "She said I heard about the press conference," her voice steady but troubled. "It's a brave thing, Ethan, but it's stirring up trouble. The nursing board's watching me, and Jamal's getting hurt at school. Maybe we need to slow this down, whatever this is between us." Ethan turned, his face pained. "Lena, this isn't just about us. It's about doing what's right. I'm not giving up on you or Jamal. We'll face this together." She shook her head, her eyes glistening. "I have to protect Jamal first. The town, your aunt. They won't let this go quietly." She stepped back, her voice soft but firm. "We need time, Ethan, for his sake." Ethan nodded, his throat tight. "If that's what you need, I'll respect it. But I'm not walking away, Lena. Not from you or this." As she left, the night air cooled between them. Ethan felt a fire kindling, a determination to fight, not for the Hawthorne name, but for the family he was beginning to imagine with Lena and Jamal. Thunder rumbled over Willow Creek, the sky a bruised gray, as rain lashed the Hawthorne estate. The guest house, where Lena Carter and her son Jamal lived, bore the brunt of the storm, its aging roof leaking in steady drips. Water pooled on the floor, soaking Jamal's star charts, and Lena scrambled to move their belongings to dry corners. "Mom, my science homework!" Jamal cried, his voice tight with worry as he rescued a soggy notebook. Lena's heart sank. She'd meant to ask for roof repairs, but Ethan's announcement and the town's backlash had distracted her. Now, with the storm raging, they couldn't stay. She grabbed her phone, dialing Ethan. She said the guest house roof leaks badly, rain drumming in the background. "Can we come to the main house? Just till it passes?" "Of course," Ethan Hawthorne replied, his voice warm with concern. "I'll get towels ready. Hurry over." Lena and Jamal dashed through the downpour, arriving at the mansion's back door, soaked and shivering. Ethan ushered them in, handing them thick towels, his hair disheveled, his shirt damp from his trek outside. The kitchen was warm, the scent of brewing hot chocolate cutting through the storm's chill. "You're staying here tonight," Ethan said, his tone firm. "There's plenty of room." Lena hesitated, her wet jacket dripping on the tiles. "Just for tonight," she agreed, glancing at Jamal, whose eyes were heavy but curious, taking in the mansion's vastness. Ethan led them upstairs to the guest rooms, once used by distant cousins, now cozy with fresh linens. Jamal climbed into a bed, asleep almost instantly, his damp curls splayed on the pillow. In the hallway, Lena turned to Ethan, her voice soft. "Thank you. This means a lot to him." "It's nothing," Ethan said, his gaze steady. "You don't need to thank me for this." The candlelight from a nearby sconce flickered, casting warm shadows, and for a moment they stood in a quiet intimacy, The storm's roar distant. The next morning, the rain persisted, delaying roof repairs. Ethan insisted they stay, and what began as one night stretched into 3. The mansion, usually cold and formal, came alive with their presence. They shared pancake breakfasts, with Jamal teaching Ethan to flip them without messing them up. Evenings were spent in the library, Lena helping Jamal with homework, while Ethan read aloud from an old astronomy book, his voice animated as he described supernovas. Lena watched, her guard softening. This Ethan, laughing, engaged, was a far cry from the man who'd mocked her with an invitation. But outside, Willow Creek's gossip grew sharper, fueled by Margaret Hawthorne's campaign. She'd called in favors, spreading rumors to the nursing board and Jamal's school, questioning Lena's motives with Ethan. Lena learned of it when a colleague texted, warning her of a board inquiry. Furious, she decided to act. That afternoon, as Ethan and Jamal sorted books in the study, Lena marched to Margaret's parlor, where the older woman sat with a cup of tea, her expression icy. "Mrs. Hawthorne," Lena said, her voice steady, "you're spreading lies about me. To the nursing board, to Jamal's school. I've cleaned your house for 7 years, raised my son, and studied nights to become a nurse. I'm not your pawn, and I won't let you tear us down to protect a name." Margaret's cup clattered in its saucer, her eyes narrowing. "You're out of line, Miss Carter. My nephew's actions, his obsession with you, are a disgrace. I'm protecting our family. You're protecting a past that's gone." Lena shot back, her chin high. "Judge me for my work, not your fears. Ethan's choosing his path, and it's not your place to punish us." She turned, leaving Margaret speechless, her defiance echoing the night she'd walked into the masquerade. Word of the confrontation spread, and Ethan, hearing it from a staff member, found Lena in the kitchen, chopping vegetables for dinner. "You face down Aunt Margaret?" he asked, a mix of awe and worry in his voice. "Lena, that was brave, but she won't stop." "I know," Lena said, setting the knife down. "But I'm done hiding. I won't let her hurt Jamal or my future." Her eyes met his, vulnerable yet fierce. "Ethan, this thing between us, it's real." He stepped closer, his hand brushing hers. "It's the realest thing I've ever known," he said softly. "You and Jamal, you're my home, not this house." Lena's breath caught. She'd fought her feelings, fearing the cost to Jamal, but the storm, their days together, had shifted something. She admitted, "I didn't want to fall for you," her voice trembling. "I tried not to, but I love you, Ethan. I do." Ethan's face softened, his eyes bright. "I love you too, Lena. More than I thought I could love anyone." He leaned in, their lips meeting in a gentle kiss, brief but filled with promise. The storm outside roared, but in that moment, they were unshaken, anchored by each other. The next day, Ethan volunteered at Jamal's school science fair, setting up displays and chatting with parents, his presence disarming skeptics. A mother, once wary, thanked him for the lab equipment, her smile genuine. Jamal beamed, showing Ethan his Comet model, and Lena watched, her heart full. The town's whispers hadn't vanished, but their love was stronger, a quiet defiance against the storm. As they returned to the mansion, Ethan took Lena's hand, his voice firm. "We'll face whatever comes, together. For you, for Jamal." Lena squeezed his hand, her resolve matching his. "Together," she echoed, knowing the fight wasn't over, but believing, for the first time, that they could win. The Willow Creek Community Center opened on a crisp autumn morning, the former Hawthorne estate alive with laughter and footsteps. The ballroom, once a stage for elite galas, now brimmed with bookshelves and science tables, its polished floors reflecting sunlight. Outside, The gardens bloomed with new paths, where children chased each other and elders strolled among revived roses. Ethan Hawthorne stood at the entrance, scissors in hand, ready to cut the ribbon. Lena Carter and her son Jamal stood beside him, her hand resting lightly on his arm, his eyes wide with pride. The crowd, shopkeepers, teachers, families from all corners of Willow Creek, clapped as Ethan spoke, his voice clear and steady. He said this house was my family's for generations, the ribbon glinting in the sun. But today, it belongs to all of you. A library, a learning center, a place where everyone's story matters, not just the ones my ancestors told. He glanced at Jamal, whose suggestion for a science lab had shaped the ballroom's new purpose. My father would be proud, not because of our name, but because this place is now yours. He cut the ribbon, and cheers erupted, the sound mingling with the rustle of leaves. Inside, the center buzzed. A group of teens peered through microscopes at the science corner, their laughter echoing. A librarian, once a maid at the estate, guided elders to a local history exhibit, its panels detailing Willow Creek's diverse roots, not just the Hawthorne legacy. Lena watched, her heart swelling. She'd cleaned these floors for years, invisible to most. Now, she walked among neighbors who greeted her warmly, their smiles genuine. Dr. Henry Ellison clapped Ethan on the shoulder, praising the center's inclusivity, while Clara Ellison hugged Lena, whispering, "You've changed this town, dear." But the path to this day hadn't been smooth. Margaret Hawthorne's campaign against Ethan and Lena had faltered, her legal threats to redirect the family trust undone by ironclad paperwork Ethan's lawyer had prepared. A week ago, she'd sent a curt letter from Charleston, acknowledging the center's opening, but refusing to attend. "You've made your choice," she wrote. "I wash my hands of it." Ethan read it with a pang, but no regret. His father's journal had shown him a better legacy, one he was building with Lena and Jamal. Lena, too, had faced her battles. The nursing board's inquiry, spurred by Margaret's rumors, had culminated in a tense review. Lena presented her perfect grades and glowing evaluations, her voice steady as she defended her professionalism. "My personal life doesn't change my work," she'd said, her chin high. Impressed by her resolve, the board cleared her and the program director offered support. "We need nurses like you," she said. "Willow Creek's lucky to have you." Lena now worked part-time at the local hospital, her certification secure, and her dream is within reach. Jamal's school life had also shifted. Ethan's involvement in the science fair, donating equipment, and bringing in university speakers had won over skeptical parents. When Jamal presented his comet model, classmates cheered, the bullying fading as their parents saw Ethan's sincerity. Jamal, now thriving, spent afternoons at the center, teaching younger kids about stars. "It's like my lab," he told Lena, grinning as he adjusted a microscope. Ethan, Lena, and Jamal had settled into their new home on Cedar Lane, a modest 3-bedroom house with an expansive yard. Ethan, funding the purchase with savings, now worked as a consultant for nonprofit trusts, finding purpose in helping communities like Willow Creek. The house was filled with Jamal's science posters, Lena's textbooks, and Ethan's mother's gardening books, a blend of their lives. They'd moved from this guest house, its roof repaired, but no longer their home. One evening, as they unpacked, Jamal hung a star chart above his bed, declaring, "This is better than the guest house. It's ours." Lena nodded, her eyes soft. "It is, baby." She looked at Ethan, who was assembling a bookshelf, his sleeves rolled up. The town still whispered. Some avoided them at the market, unable to accept their bond. But others, like the Ellisons, offered support. Lena felt a quiet strength, knowing she and Ethan were building something real, despite the lingering shadows of Margaret's disapproval. That night, as they sat on the porch, stars, the garden behind the Cedar Lane house, glowed under a canopy of stars, string lights twinkling in the branches of old maples. A simple wooden arch, draped with white roses and ivy, stood at the center of the yard, its petals catching the soft September breeze. Ethan Hawthorne stood beneath it, his suit dark and tailored, his hands clasped to hide their tremble. A small crowd of friends and neighbors sat in rows of chairs, their faces lit with anticipation. The air smelled of jasmine and fresh-cut grass, a far cry from the heavy grandeur of the Hawthorne mansion. Today, 1 year after the masquerade that changed everything, Ethan was marrying Lena Carter, who had reshaped his world. Victor Langston, Ethan's friend and now best man, adjusted Ethan's tie with a grin. "Relax, man," he said, his peacock blue vest a nod to the masquerade. "She's not changing her mind. You've got this." Ethan managed a smile, his heart racing. He said, "I want it to be perfect for her," his voice low. The past year, Lena's courage, Jamal's laughter, the community center's opening, had shown him what love could build. Now, he wanted to promise her forever. Inside the house, Lena sat at a vanity, her reflection steady in the mirror. Her white dress, simple but elegant, hugged her frame, its soft fabric a quiet contrast to the silver gown she'd worn to the masquerade. Jasmine, her friend, pinned the last curl into place, smiling. "You're a vision, Lena. Ethan's going to lose his breath when he sees you." Lena laughed softly, her nerves easing. The woman in the mirror stood tall, no longer the housekeeper who faded into the background, but a nurse, a mother, a woman loved. She touched the silver locket at her throat, a gift from Jamal, etched with a tiny star. A knock sounded, and Jamal peeked in, handsome in a small suit, his grin wide. "Mom, you look like a queen," he said, rushing to hug her. "Everyone's waiting." "I practiced my part with Ethan. I'm ready to walk you down the aisle." Lena pulled him close, her heart full. She said, "You're my best man, Starboy," kissing his forehead. "Let's do this." She stood, her hand in Jamal's, and stepped into the night, the string quartet's music guiding them. The guests rose as Lena appeared, Jamal leading her with solemn pride. Dr. Henry and Clara Ellison beamed from the front row, joined by Lena's hospital colleagues and the community center's director. A few old country club members, now supportive, sat among newer faces, families who used the center's library and gardens. Margaret Hawthorne was absent, her refusal to attend a quiet sting, but Ethan had made peace with it. Some hearts changed slowly, if at all. Jamal placed Lena's hand in Ethan's, whispering loudly, "Take good care of my mom." The crowd chuckled, and Ethan knelt to his level. "I promise, buddy," he said, his voice thick. Jamal stepped back, standing proudly as the best son, his smile bright. Under the arch, Ethan and Lena faced each other, and the minister's words were a gentle hum. Ethan spoke first, his vows heartfelt, straying from their script. "Lena, you walked into my party in a silver dress a year ago, and the world shifted. You showed me what strength looks like, what love means. You and Jamal taught me to live with purpose, not pride. I promise to spend every day trying to be worthy of you both, to build a home where we're all seen." Lena's eyes glistened, her voice steady as she replied, "Ethan, I went to that party to be seen, not as your housekeeper, but as me. I never expected you to see me completely, honestly, lovingly. You've given Jamal and me a family, a place to belong. I promise to see you the same way, every day, for the rest of our lives." She squeezed his hands, her smile radiant. The minister pronounced them husband and wife, and Ethan kissed Lena, the crowd's cheers wrapping around them like a warm embrace. Jamal clapped loudest, darting forward for a family hug, his laughter mingling with their joy. Victor raised a toast at the reception in the yard with tables of homemade food. To Ethan and Lena Westwood Carter, he said, proof that the best beginnings come from the most unexpected places. Glasses clinked, and the night unfolded in music and dance. Later, Ethan and Lena slipped away to the community center, now a vibrant hub. In the entrance hall, a glass case held the silver dress Lena had worn a year ago, donated by Clara as a symbol of change. "It's perfect," Ethan said, his arm around her. "That dress started it all." Lena leaned into him, her eyes on the gown. It wasn't the dress. It was we, choosing to see each other. They walked through the center, where kids read in the library and teens tinkered at the science tables Jamal had inspired. This was their legacy, not a name, but a place for all. Jamal joined them as they danced under the stars, his suit jacket discarded. "We're a real family now, right?" he asked, grinning. Ethan lifted him onto his shoulders. "Always, buddy." Lena laughed, her hand in Ethan's, knowing that despite whispers, despite challenges, they had found home. Not in a mansion, but in each other.